Happy to have you along once again. We are joined, as always, by Greg Engert, beer director for the Neighborhood Restaurant Group, which includes where we are, Church Key, our home base, Birch and Barley downstairs, of course. Greg, always great to see you.
See you too, buddy.
What is on tap this week?
So this week is a very special week for craft beer and for Washington, D.C. Craft beer. We are kicking off the Craft Brewers Conference, which is coming to D.C. for the very first time. This is an annual event where they basically anybody in the craft beer industry congregates in an area. Typically it's been, San Diego, Chicago, things like that, and now DC this year. So you're looking at 4,000 to 5,000 people coming to town. And of course, all of the breweries bring really cool beers. All the local brewers are producing great beers for this week. Kind of a time to show off. Obviously, the bars and restaurants are doing the same. We'll talk about that more, I'm sure, later. But it also seemed like an appropriate time to feature one of the best local beers that we have, for sure. And that's from DC Brau, Washington, D.C.'s first production brewery since 1956. And it's called On the Wings of Armageddon. I know you're familiar with it. It's
getting a cult following in a pretty short period of time, isn't it?
And we have a great long history with this beer. So this is DC Brau's Imperial IPA. It's not been around for very long. It was kind of originally inspired by end of the world ideas and events. In fact, we've done 2 different events surrounding On the Wings of Armageddon at Church Key that involved some pretty amazing theatrics. And I think we have some links for that if you want to check it out. But we did these events where we basically held, I guess you call them seances of sorts here. So really fun to check out. But an amazing Imperial IPA, which DC Brau rightfully brewed again, I think for only the 3rd or 4th time ever for Craft Brewers Conference. And what's even cooler is this is the first time they put them in cans. And I think you may have gone over for the...
Yes, Mike McMurdy, my beer partner in crime, and I went over there just before noon this past Saturday. And good thing we got there early. We were like 10th, 11th in line, and by the time we left, I mean, it looked like people were waiting to buy concert tickets.
Yeah,
they were lined up around the parking lot.
I think they sold 250 cases of cans that day. Sold them out, actually. So while they're going to do more cans, so definitely keep an eye out for that. Yeah. But in the meantime, they saved plenty of draft. So from this moment going forward, this whole week, look at for On the Wings of Armageddon all over DC on tap. It is amazing. It's not to be missed, and obviously you can already smell it. So
great.
Might as well jump right in here. You can see it's completely unfiltered. They don't take anything out of this beer, and they put a lot in.
Ooh, it's the hop note aplenty.
It's got a huge tropical fruit quality to it.
Yeah.
Tangerine, peaches. It's very floral, a little bit piney, herbaceous.
And so hoppy, yet it walks right up to the line of being too bitter and stops to me, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a lot of the hops are coming into this beer, I mean, in every aspect, but for dry hopping. And so let's talk a little bit about what this beer is and what it means. It's really exceptional, how expensive it is to make and how time-consuming. So when you brew beer, you brew a certain amount of barrels of beer. And a barrel is roughly 2 half-barrel kegs, like a standard keg, right? So a 30-barrel batch is what they brewed of this beer. And, if you get a great yield, you will yield that same amount of beer. They only yield about 23 barrels out of 30 barrels. So instead of yielding 60 kegs of this beer worth, they're yielding, 46. That means there's a lot of loss. And that loss is because of all the hops they're adding in. So, the more hops you're adding, the more of the wort, the sugar water that you could ferment into beer, gets left behind, kind of gets soaked up. So they're putting in way more ingredients than they're yielding, pretty much. Now, they add 100, just for the dry hopping, which means after the boil and everything, they add 120 pounds of hops just for aroma. That's the finishing touch. So that's going to soak up a lot of beer, fermentable wort, and it's also going to give you that huge aroma. And that's why you get so much big hop character without as much of the bitterness. And then to that point, this beer is conditioned for 40 days. So it sits in tanks for 40 days before it's actually available for release. They use many hops, But it's cool now. There's this thing called, they're hop blends that hop growers and negotiants are selling. So there's one called Falconer's Flight. It's pretty popular, gaining in popularity, which is basically a pre-formed package of different hops. And there's lots of different hops in it, including Citra, Sriracha Ace, which is originally a Japanese lemony hop, and Simcoe, which is piney and resinous and grapefruity, and then others are in this hop. So lots of it, long time of aging, and it yields this beautiful beer.
It's delicious. Now, last Saturday was March 16th. These were canned on March 15th, the day before. I think it's safe to say for me, I've never had a beer
as fresh
as in
day.
a can
Yeah.
as that. So that was a treat. One of the guys pouring the samples at DC Brau was telling us how he spent the day before canning the beer.
And kudos to DC Brau, as many brewers are starting to get into this because they understand it, is that they are dating their cans. So now when you get a package of any DC Brau cans, on the top you will see the date, this one 031513, which tells you when how fresh it is, which is uber important, as we always talk about with hoppy beers and with crisp, refreshing beers.
We'll talk in a moment about a lot of stuff you've got going on for the Brewers Conference, and I wanted to ask you a question about it. But quickly, we've been down this road before, tough to pair this with. What, if anything?
So we actually recently did a dinner with Dogfish Head downstairs. It was all hoppy beers. And that was really fun for us because we always talk about hoppy beers are so difficult. And so it allowed my chef, Kyle Bailey, and I to kind of really push the envelope with what we could pair. And so some cool new ideas are kind of coming to light from that. And, one thing that is great with hoppy beers, two things right off the rip. Raw beef carpaccio. Raw beef that's big and salty, always excellent. Obviously, you might not have that at home, but I'm saying, like, if you're at a restaurant and you see carpaccio, grab it and go for an IPA with that. Another thing is bacon across the board. So, pork belly, bacon, pancetta, and saltier meats are going to work well. That's why it's so great with like deli sandwiches. IPAs are as well. And then the other thing is dessert. These are great beers to finish with anyways because they're intense, especially Imperial IPAs. When you think of like carrot cake and IPAs, just go hand in hand. Chocolate cake of any kind is really cool. It's bringing in cocoa flavors. It's not, it's a complement kind of by contrast. So you're adding fruit to the dessert and chocolate to the beer. Those work well as well. Would
you imagine I was at the Dogfish Head tasting dinner as well?
I didn't know if we were going to mention that.
Paying customer.
Absolutely.
So the Craft Brewers Conference, this is not like a tasting event for consumers.
No, it's more of an industry event, really.
Yeah, it's an industry event where people can get together and, like you say, show off. I'm sure they learn a lot from each other, talk about new trends. Mm-hmm. But the consumer does benefit because you, and I'm assuming other watering holes in town, are doing stuff in conjunction.
Huge stuff in conjunction. So what you have is thousands of craft beer people in town. Brewers, suppliers, maltsters, hop growers, people who provide corks and cages to bottles. I mean, everybody's here, and they have at the convention center, of course. It's like a big trade show, but also with seminars on the business of craft beer, on brewing techniques, things like that. So it's a really cool focus for that. But bringing all these people to town also allows us to jump out of the box and say, hey, let's feature some beers we don't normally get to feature. So like next week for us and other places as well will be doing this. But next week, I was mentioning to you, we are doing upwards of 2 or 3 different events up here at Church Key. First come, first serve, no reservations or anything like that. Starting Monday the 25th, going through Friday the 29th, and it is just crazy. We're actually going to be showcasing at least 215 different kegs and casks throughout the week, which is just nuts. And so, we'll be featuring stuff from a lot of brewers that you see around here. Like we'll be having great DC Brau beers, including on the wings of Armageddon throughout the week, but also brewers you don't see around a lot, like Cigar City, like Surly Brewing Company. Those are on Monday. We're going to showcase those. Tuesday, we're doing this huge Saison event where we have beers from fantastic Saison producers like Hill Farmstead in Vermont on draft, Tired Hands out of Philadelphia, St. Somewhere from Florida, Prairie Artisanal from Oklahoma, just crazy stuff. Beers from Shorts Brewing Company in Michigan. Wednesday night, 10 different North Carolina brewers are bringing their wares up, which is going to be outstanding. Blue Jacket, of course, is in the mix, right? Because we're getting ready to open Blue Jacket at the end of May, early June. We brewed a beer with Revolution out of Chicago, Half Acre out of Chicago, and Three Floyds out of Indiana. And we'll be debuting that on Wednesday night as well. So just in California beers on Thursday, Avery Brewing Company Friday, lots and lots of stuff. And, we're not alone. All the different watering holes, as you said, will be showcasing great beers as well.
Check out Church Key's website. Check out Church Key on Twitter. You can find out a lot more about
and
that.
And DCbeer.com is fantastic. It has everybody's events up.
And one last note on the convention. The general public can't go. You sign up as
There's
a
tickets,
convention attendee and you pay a convention.
Yeah, a convention fee. I think there might be some tickets available. But
okay.
I think really to your point, what this is doing is, first of all, bringing rock star brewers into town. You'll see them everywhere all week, which is pretty cool. But it's really upping the ante for the events. And the beers, frankly, you'll be able to taste all over town.
Sometimes I feel, and maybe we are, in the beer capital of the world, truly.
We're getting there. Yeah, we're
exactly. If you've got a question for Greg, the email address is beeroftheweek@WTOP.com. Greg, thank you as always.
Thank you.
Everyone, please always do drink responsibly, and be sure to bring your thirst next time for another Beer of the Week.